Well, drugs are technologies, and they shape the users in ways that the users never suspect. And our frenzied, goal-oriented, surface-obsessed society is a society of sugar, alcohol, red meat, and television. Television is an incredibly invasive and powerful drug. The average American watches 6 hours a day. Imagine if, following World War II, a drug had been introduced, that now the average American spent 6 hours a day absolutely loaded on this drug, doing nothing else. But because we are materialists, we don't see television as a drug, and yet your blood pools in your rear end, your brain waves fall into a measurable zone, you fixate. There is an entire set of symptoms, no less dramatic than the symptoms of smoking a bomber or honking up a line. But we don't see television.
Freaky people need not apply. So I tucked my hair up under my hat and I went in to ask him why. He said, "You look like a fine, upstanding young man. I think you do." So I took off my hat. I said, "Imagine that, me working for you." Whoa, sign, sign.
Best fine stereo.
Alan,
Ladies and gentlemen.
you're having a nightmare. What if it's true?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Alan, it's a possibility, isn't it?
The very word secrecy is repugnant.
Secrets.
In a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers,
constant, extreme danger,
which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger,
extreme danger,
that an announced need for increased security.
What the hell is going on?
This is Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park.
Will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control.
You're crazy.
And no officious, high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes.
Isn't the Pentagon suspicious that all the buildings blow up?
Or to withhold from the press and the public
I think you're just looking at things for the first time.
the facts they deserve to know.
You've had your whole f***ing life to think things over. What good's a few minutes more gonna do you now?
The facts they deserve to know. They deserve to know. Deserve to know.
Oh, surprise opening. Hey, welcome to Green Crush Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park. Thanks for coming to the airwaves. Thanks for picking up YouTube. And thanks for being here on time. And as you know, we always start at 2:03 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're always a little bit late. All kinds of problems occur on a real-life live show. That's probably why they don't do them anymore very much on television. And it's just a one-man operation here kind of thing in the little box studio, and I'm kind of not great at all of this stuff. But I'm getting better, and I'm trying to clear out the detritus from my life that seems to be preventing me from spending more time with you folks and getting things ready and prepared than I have been able to lately. Thank you, vampires. I appreciate it. Your contribution has been noted. So thanks a bunch to the naysayers, the critics, the problematics. And we'll be getting into some reasons why that happens shortly on the show. But before we get going too much further, let me just say right now, I'm very excited, all that other crap out of the way, to have someone on the show as a guest who is very knowledgeable. I consider myself a bit of an expert on about 0.1% of one aspect of cannabis and what it does and how it works. And luckily for me, that was enough to pull my my butt out of the grave. But this gentleman here, Dana Larsen, he's a BC guy. He lives in Vancouver, British Columbia. He is an activist, to say the very least. He is an author. Let me show you this book that I picked up a couple of years ago. And where have we got a camera here for this? Over here? Okay. Cannabis in Canada. This isn't a crazy book. This is like it was authored by or illustrated by R. Crumb. But let's give credit where credit's due. It's Patrick Dowers. Patrick Dowers is the, I'm going to show you some. It's really intense when you look at it. It seems like it would take a lot. It's like poitulism. It would take a long time to get all that done. I'm not going to flip the pages too much, but let's see what else we got here. I see we have Watermelon in here. She's a guest from a show gone by. Very fantastic woman who ran for office in, look at this, Stephen Harper. Is that who that is? Yeah. Stephen Harper, former Prime Minister of Canada right there. We're not zooming in, but you get the idea. This is a great book, and Dana wrote it. Dana Larsen, he's our guest today because he knows a lot of things. And he's known a lot of things for a long time regarding cannabis. I would call him a fully fledged expert. It's just a wonderful book. He's also got some other books at potheadbooks.com, and he's taken a run with the Dr. Seuss style of writing, and we'll talk to him about that as well, how he was able to come up with that and how he gets away with that, because it really looks like Dr. Seuss. It's very funny. Green Pot and Hash or something, I think it's called. We'll have to, I don't have it in front of me here. Like I said, I can't carry around 26 books when I'm going to be running around the city. But Dana is, like I say, he's an activist, so his group is sensiblebc.ca. That's SENSIBLE, bc.ca. He also has creams that you can rub on yourself and on your loved one suffering from various ailments. He'll get into the details on what those are for, how they work. And he's also got a dispensary called cannabisdispensary.ca. Now, I know I'm okay to say that on the air. He's not upset about it, or he wouldn't be putting it online. I really doubt he's sanctioned by the Trudeau government, but who knows? We'll find out. And he's not in the studio. He's in Vancouver, so it's only in the morning for him right now. I apologize for getting things off a little bit late, but that's why we've had to build a late start guarantee into the top of the show. So welcome to Green Crush, and welcome to Conspiracy Queries. It turns out they're the same thing. I used to host a show called Conspiracy Queries, both just online and at Sirius XM, and a couple of years ago, almost 3 years ago now, I had to leave that show. It was taken off the air anyway, but I don't think I would have been able to keep going as it was with this whole cancer story of mine. So if you're a new listener to the show, I'll tell you really quickly. I was doing okay, I guess, in my life until I got real sick in 2013. Fell off the health train pretty badly, and by the end of the year, I was diagnosed with aggressive advanced stage 4 prostate cancer that had already metastasized into much of my skeleton, given 10 to 12 months tops to live. And there were no alternatives. And the guy's a smart guy, and he's been to school, and he's got his doctor degree, and he's a specialist. And I'm still not dead. So maybe go back to school and learn a few more things about the availability and the efficacy of cannabis. At the very top of the show there, that was, of course, the renowned psychonaut Terence McKenna holding the mirror up to society as no one has ever done before or since. I really enjoy listening to Terence. He's a poet when he speaks. He doesn't write anything from the vibe of it. It just flows. But he has definitely brought some fantastic things to light. Unfortunately, no longer with us. Also died from cancer. So that's unfortunate. But he has left us with a legacy of hundreds of hours of things to listen to. So check out Terence McKenna, who was at the top of the show. And, all right, so Dana Larsen will be coming on shortly, and we should really get busy with getting to some kind of news roundup. So I've been looking around what's going on. It's hard to keep up. I'm going to tell you this. On the cannabis front alone, people were saying, are you really going to have enough things to talk about? And not only are there enough things to talk about, I can never get everything in on the show. And I get the show built, and then the day before something else crazy happens, and you just can't get it all done. So let's see if we can do a little bit of a read-through of what's going on in the news. Oh, that's too loud, see? That's way too loud. Okay. All right. I'll probably fade that right out. Just want to get to the good stuff. So Dana Larsen will be on shortly. I wanted to point out that as a cancer victim / conqueror, maybe it's getting a bit easier to deal with this stuff at all, because I'm pretty sure the sooner you catch it, the easier it is to get rid of, regardless of the type. Right? That makes like a lot of sense to you, I hope. Maybe some doctor will come on and tell me that's not the case at all. I'm not really too sure, but I'd like to tell you that there is a new cancer blood test offering promising results. And, boy, I could have used that in 2013. They kept sticking me with pins. I was pissing in bottles, and, nope, you're good. And on I failed. Onward I failed. I'd like to thank the good doctor in Yorkville, Toronto, who kept on not figuring out a stage 4 disease. So at the risk of a lawsuit, I won't mention his name, but he's quite famous, and he's in Yorkville, Toronto. Maybe I'll mention his name later. But I don't want to. Why get myself into further trouble now? He's just a very famous doctor who's in Yorkville, and, he's on Schollard Avenue. But I'm not going to tell you his name just because he ran a bunch of tests and sent me off to a specialist, and even the specialist couldn't find it. I don't want to tell you exactly what his name is. That would be waxing polemic. So let's just move on out of here, and those notions with this news of the new cancer blood test offering promising results. This is from ctvnews.ca. Scientists are reporting progress on a blood test to detect many types of cancer at an early stage. Hey, they're finally getting on that, including some of the most deadly ones that lack screening tools now. Many groups are working on liquid biopsy tests, which look for DNA and other things that tumors shed into blood to try to find cancer before it spreads into my friggin' bones, Doc. Before that happens. Before it takes out my prostate and turns it from a grape into a cork. Prior to this, that would be the best time to find this stuff. So I'm glad that some sober minds are looking into it. In a study Thursday in the journal Science, Johns Hopkins University scientists looked to see how well their experimental test detected cancer in people already known to have the disease. The blood test found about 70% of 8 common types of cancer in the 1,005 patients. The rates varied depending on the type, lower for breast tumors, but high for ovarian, liver, and pancreatic ones. And oh boy, you've really got to find the pancreatic one as soon as possible, because that's what took out my mummy. She had pancreatic cancer, and they told me, this is 22 years ago now, but they said at the time, listen, once you find out that you have pancreatic, it's already way too late. So hopefully over the last couple of decades, there have been some improvements, and there are now tests. And there's this cool thing that's available that wasn't so available before called cannabis oil. So while we do have Dana Larsen coming on the show shortly, I would like to put the offer out there to any contrarian politician or policy maker or what have you. If you think this stuff doesn't work, if you want to take me on in a debate, sit across the table here and tell me how I'm deeply mistaken, if you want to tell me how there's no evidence of that, get off your keyboard at Facebook and stop with the cheap shots and come and sit your rotund little buttski down here in front of me and let's go at it. Let's have a little debate, like a CNN crossfire kind of thing, like they used to do back when it was genuinely entertaining. So that's what I'm talking about now is that this oil is really fantastic for you. And for all these screeching politicians, the top of the heap of which in our country, Justin Trudeau, has for somehow or other needed to go to Davos, Switzerland to take a fresh batch of orders from whoever tells him what to do. But Justin and Bill Blair, this former cop who, has been in charge of transitioning the law system in Canada from how we used to arrest people to how we're going to arrest people. He looks like an alcoholic. The face with the punched in kind of face. You've had just a few too many. And, tell me that guy doesn't down a fifth of scotch every day. I want to get a tail on him, as they say in police parlance, and let's watch him come out of his favorite watering hole and ask him why you think when you're tipping back the booze so often you've got a clear enough mind to pass reasonable and just legislation on the substance of cannabis, which they tell you is terrible for you. Oh, yeah, and they're going to start pulling everybody over and checking their blood count to see if they have cannabis, and then they're with their bogus reportage and their beliefs. These folks that say, well, we believe that the children are going to get hurt, and we believe that, and so that's why we're making these tough laws to put people in jail and everything, because we believe. I don't care what you believe. I'm all done listening to what you believe, Justin, Bill, Kathleen Windbag. It sickens me that you believe this, and that means that you've spurned the research. It means that you haven't done your homework, or you have, and you put it away somewhere. And then, of course, now we creep back into the conspiracy aspect of the show, because there's no way you can properly discuss the full scope of cannabis without doing that, without understanding and researching the cannabis or the conspiracy angle. And we will get to that later on in the show specifically. But this is great. Hit up your doctor for this new cancer blood test that offers promising results, because believe you me, you want to get this thing figured out well before it starts chewing up your insides. So that's great. Thank you, Associated Press. That was published last Friday, January 19th. Johns Hopkins, peer-reviewed, all that stuff. So if you're listening and you don't believe it, I wonder what these people do. What do they keep telling themselves? It doesn't work. I think it's terrible, and I saw the kids smoking at the high school, and we can't have that kind of thing going on. And pass me some of that moonshine, will you? That's kind of where we're at right now. A lot of people don't quite get it, and we'll feature one of those people on the show momentarily. Moving on in the news to cbc.ca, my old homestead. I was on a show there for 12 years and a radio show quite often, too. I'm not going to tell you I know exactly why I never get contact with anyone that works there anymore, except for the one reporter who wanted to do an interview on me after I took Kathleen Wynne to task. Was fascinated as hell. His cameraman actually had prostate cancer. He was excited as hell. And, of course, none of it made it on the news that night. Because it's anecdotal, I guess. What I'm saying, it's not really true. I'm just one guy telling one story. When does it become criminal to lump in enough anecdotal reports of a similar recovery nature from hundreds of thousands of people around the world? We don't all get together and collude. I don't know little girls from Ireland who've had to go off to some other country because Ireland's government said cannabis oil was illegal, We don't sit around and plan things out and then come out of a meeting like Kathleen Wynne or her Attorney General or Justin Trudeau or Bill Blair and say, well, we believe that. We don't care about your beliefs. We are working on the facts now. So shut up. Okay. So I know this is a show about cannabis and its access and awareness, but look at this in the CBC News. Trouble ahead in Canada's beer economy as the escalator tax takes hold. Industry Association wants the finance minister to scrap the annual inflation-linked tax increase on beer. Sure they do. If beer commercials are anything to go by, having a cold one in Canada is just as much a staple as watching hockey. But according to new figures released this week by a Brewers Association, Canada's once booming beer economy is facing growing challenges as consumers down a glass of beer that the industry says is already half empty. Beer Canada says almost half of what consumers pay right now for average price of beer is tax. And as the federal tax on beer increases annually starting next April, so that'll be, I guess they mean 2018, consumers will have to pay even more for their suds. The federal tax on domestic and imported beer rose by 2% last year as part of the 2017 budget. Now, I don't personally care about this too much, but I do think it's ridiculous that they're going to peg this widely available in 10,000 different outlets in Ontario alone depressant that causes problems, that's nowhere near as curative and helpful and restorative as cannabis, which they still want to marginalize, criminalize, finally allow to call it a medicine, but tax it anyway. Say, hey, it's just like tobacco. We have to regulate it in such a way. It's really dangerous stuff. And then you can walk down the street smoking a cigarette, but you can't do that smoking a joint unless you're a medical holder. And if you're a medical holder, you paid $1 a gram tax in the first place. So if you bought a pound of it, you'd have to pay $454 tax. But you don't have to pay that kind of tax on cigarettes. You don't have to pay that kind of tax on beer. And whenever the comparison doesn't work anymore, like how much alcohol can you carry around with you? You could have a guy walking by my window here with a shopping cart full of 624s, a couple of 40-pounders of alcohol, some kind of scotch, whatever. He could have as much booze as he can carry, no problem. But you carry 31 grams, just over an ounce. 31 grams of cannabis, all of a sudden you're a criminal. These people have made these decisions from what they like to call their sober minds. But I don't believe, I know this is an assault on humanity. It's an assault on rights. It's based on hunches and notions and need for control over a substance that once you take enough of it, you can see through a lot of the fictions here. So I'm getting a note from my producer live in the moment. See, this is something that if we were doing a pre-taped show, we would just, I'd skip past this. But let me see what Kim's saying. Oh, Dana's getting antsy. Okay, right. Well, there's no secrets here. I guess he's getting antsy. We're going to give him a call in a second. I just wanted to mention that this alcohol problem of the tax, never mind what it does to your brain, the tax is going to go up and up and up. And don't you think they're going to do that with cannabis? I think they are. I really do. They'll just keep pegging it, and then people will complain, and they'll continue to give too much money to foreign lenders instead of using the Bank of Canada, and it'll cause more and more and more, and it won't be fair. And it's just the same old stupid cycle. So here we go. We're going to dial up Mr. Larsen, and I know he's far away, and we didn't really get to jam a little bit before the show started, thanks to particular technical difficulties. But and we were going to have him on the video today, but that's not going to happen either, apparently. But let's get to it, and here we go. That's going to make that terrible noise now. All right, get out of here with that thing. Keep asking me to do add-ons for Skype. Why would I want to do that? All right, so, all right, here he is. Let's give him a ding, the famous Skype sound. Dana Larsen. I'm excited to have him on. He wants to get on. He can't be reached at the moment. This is the kind of thing that drives me up the friggin' wall. What do you mean he can't be reached? Let's call him back. You can hear it, right? And there's his picture. We're connected. I mean, he just needs to answer the Skype, or Skype needs to do something better than it's already doing. Can't be reached at Skype. Kim, can you take a look at this? Why wouldn't he be able to do that? We've already pre-tested, pre-hooked up, had a pre-call. Don't tell me this isn't going to be the thing. There he is, and there it's ringing, and he can't be reached at the moment. Good gracious. I'm going to do this one more time, and then I'm going to tell Kim to tell Dana to call me and continue with the show, and Dana can pipe in. I've got like 6 calls in here now. This is unfortunate, huh, folks? You know, a couple of things you can do to help us out is to, if you're already subscribed to the show on iTunes, thank you so much. Go back there, find out where we are. Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park, or Green Crush with Alan Park, or both. And thanks for subscribing, and then unsubscribe, and then resubscribe. That'll help us out if you can't afford any kind of contributory funding. I understand that's difficult. We're just trying to get into the position where these kinds of snags don't take place. So, Kim, if Dana's antsy, I don't know why I can't seem to reach him. It's definitely him. I'm calling. And he's definitely not answering, and this is a super bummer. You know, can you imagine Stephen Colbert or somebody who's like, coming out now, Tom Hanks, and then he's not there? Oh, brother. Okay, so I'll leave Kim to dig around on that one. That's a lot of fun, eh? Oh, goodness. Okay, well, this mightily blows, because if we don't get Dana on, I'm guilty of false advertising. We've been talking about this for days. I don't know why he's not coming on, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to move on with some other stories. They're still relevant, and it's alcohol related again, so we're going to get back to that. What are the problems for the budget bill as senators are taking aim at this annual alcohol tax hike? Just on the principle alone, I guess, but I hope they manage to figure that thing out before we start dicking around with this. For the wineries and the breweries. We don't want to get into this kind of mess with the cannabis, and I believe things will be going a lot better if they take this into consideration, that we don't need to be financially raped to access a product that grows out of the dirt. Long-term effects of alcohol impair brain's pathways that underlie impulse control. This is from the Medical Daily, medicaldaily.com. The idea alcohol has negative effects on the brain isn't anything new. Previous studies, however, have only measured these effects through behavior and post-mortem studies, not scans of the actual brain. A new study published in Alcoholism, Clinical and Experimental Research, the official journal of the Research Society on Alcoholism and the International Society for Biomedical Research on Alcoholism, finally makes use of the technology to gain a deeper understanding of long-term effects that alcohol has on white brain matter. Frontal white matter tracts are the pathways that connect the frontal lobes to the rest of the brain, says Catherine Braun-Fortier. She's the study co-author and a neuropsychologist and researcher at VA Boston Healthcare System, assistant prof at Harvard Medical School, and explained in a press release that the frontal cortex is the integration center for all other parts of the brain that are important to behavior and cognitive function. So maybe the next time your dopey, uncle or father-in-law starts prattling on about some kind of nonsense that he can't even back up, and as soon as you put facts in his face, he just goes silent, maybe you can blame it on the sauce. So that's in Medical Daily. Have a look at that. Scientific American says, how much can the brain recover from years of excessive alcohol consumption? Richard Ridderenkoff, professor of neurocognitive development and aging at the University of Amsterdam, answers that question and says, no. He says the answer is simply no. So if you're like decades deep into having a few, like basically this, if on Facebook or wherever someone takes a picture of you, your go-to pose is to sit there holding your drink up like that. Have a look at the Scientific American with this article from by Mark A.W. Andrews. Came out in September 1st, 2011, so it's not like you haven't had time to look it up and figure it out. But I guess when you fire those neural pathways with fermented things such as the strong power of alcohol. Now, why am I saying this? I like to have a drink once in a while. Sure do lots of people. I'm not trying to pick on everybody that drinks, but I don't understand this level of enshrinement that we have for alcohol when it's undeniable what kind of damage it can do, and these are facts, and then they want to tell us what they believe about cannabis, which are counter to the facts. So they need to stop doing that. Okay, Bill Blair? Okay, pop another cork and tell me you've got it together, all right? Because cannabis oil is gathering unstoppable momentum as a world-class healer. This is on healthnutnews.com, and of course it's not on one of the mainstream NBC whatevers, and I don't care. You can't discount a website just because your mom doesn't know anything about it. So here's the deal. Cannabis oil, this is originally from a different website too, on Blacklisted News. Cannabis oil is gathering unstoppable momentum as a world-class healer, and there's little or nothing Western governments are going to be able to do to stop it. But here's Dana. Fantastic. So we'll go to that story later. Here we go. Dana. Oh, come on. We all heard the ring, and I'm being told I can't reach him on Skype. Are you there, Dana? What's going on here, man? He didn't get the call. He called me. Now he's on my screen. What's happening here? Dana, are you there? Okay, this is filthy, disgusting, dirty stuff. I don't know what's happening here, but it's super frustrating to take a call from someone, and he's not there.
Hello?
There you are. I don't know what's going on with Skype, Dana, but welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. Or hanging up.
Hey.
What is going on here with Skype? Can you hear this, Russell? Hey, can you hear me, Dana? Dana, hello.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can finally hear you. I don't understand any of this, what's happened. But let's get past that. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you.
All right. If you can come a little bit closer to your whatever it is you're speaking into, that would be nice. It sounds like you're at an airport.
Is that good?
It still sounds like you're at an airport, but hey. Yeah, we can hear you. This is okay. This will do. Of course, the call was much clearer when we spoke earlier, but anyway, listen, tell the folks who you are and how come you've been involved in cannabis for so long. How far back are we going when you first thought, hey, maybe I'll try this stuff out, and how did you come at it?
Oh, well, I first smoked pot when I was 18, and I became an activist soon after. I actually started a club at my university called the League for Ethical Action on Drugs. We would organize events on campus and have speakers come in, and that's really how I got started. So it's been well over 25 years.
25 years of active use. Now, what do you say to people? Oh, come on. Like, I'm not touching anything. I just want anybody and everybody to know. I'm on my computer here, of course, but this connection stinks. I can verify that because he's no longer on the line. Okay, so that was great. That was Dana Larsen, folks. That's our guest for today. If you're reading any sarcasm or frustration or anger in me, you're nailing it. You're 100% right. I'm kind of pissed off about this. We've done everything we're supposed to do. We've contacted. I'm sending a report now to Skype that says, 1 star, get out of here. And I'm getting another thing that says Dana can't be reached on Skype. And he can now hear me. He's telling me he can hear me saying I'm not on the line. Somehow he can hear me, but I can't hear him while Skype's telling me, So we're chatting right now. Dana's online. So tell you what, I'll ask him a question. He'll type out the answer, and then I'll read it. Does that sound good? No, it doesn't. Okay, we're going to need to fix some things. Let's try this. He's saying, is there anything I can do? And I'm saying, please call back. This is super frustrating. Oh, I can see the investors are going to jump on board this thing right away. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Dana. No, it's not your fault. I don't know what's happening here. This is very strange. I'm being told you're not available at the same time I'm speaking with you. Okay, so I was going to ask you, so you told me you started using the stuff around 18 years old and became an activist soon after that. Let me ask you this. When people say to you, what is cannabis doing to your brain? It's affected you. You should have waited until you were 24 or 25. And obviously you're a very successful entrepreneur. You know a lot of things that mainstream people have no concept of. You've managed to pull yourself together in such a way where you're giving yourself a living. You're helping people with medical creams. You're writing fantastic books. What do you tell people who criticize the fact you started using it at such a young age?
Well, I don't really see 18 very young. I have a lot of friends who started smoking pot when they were 12 or 13 and that, which does seem like a bit of a young age. But my personal experience is that I feel cannabis makes me smarter. When I use cannabis, I feel I have insights and perspectives that I might not otherwise have, and that it gives...
Oh, no. Come on. It says... okay. Yeah, you kind of cut out and cut in again. This is the worst. This is the worst kind of Skype. Is Skype really a company? Is that a thing, or are they just playing around with cups and straws? Okay, so you're saying you're very successful, but you've told us that you're saying that it's helped your thinking and it's helped you come to perspectives and realizations that maybe you wouldn't be able to get to without it, and that's because it's doing things to your brain, right? Like it's accessing your immune system and your prefrontal cortex and everything else. And you've got evidence and experience showing that it's been very helpful to you.
I think there's a lot of very smart people that use cannabis. And, like anything else, I mean, it's not going to make you a genius in and of itself, but I think it's a wonderful tool to help understand your own mind better, to help understand what you're perceiving. I think cannabis is very, very useful. And if you know how to use it properly, it can be wonderful for your intelligence and for your compassion and for your understanding of the world. It's a very powerful tool as long as you use it properly.
Right, and that's what we don't... Was that me? Oh, yeah. I'm getting an echo of myself now. Another new, fresh problem. That is something that we are told all the time, is that cannabis is dangerous. It can cause all kinds of problems. And to me, I've likened it to the incorrect use of a table saw or the incorrect installation of a glass window, etc. I mean, it's a tool, right? You have to learn how to, a car is deadly, but you have to know how to use it, right? I mean, that's the same thing. But how do you figure the authority figures get away with telling everybody it's only dangerous and they hide the benefits of it like this?
Well, I think there's been an ongoing propaganda campaign for almost 100 years now against cannabis, and a lot of people don't have direct experience with it, so their only experience with cannabis is what they see in the newspaper and what they watch on TV. And if that's your only perspective, it's understandable. You might think cannabis is dangerous and deadly and harmful, but once you have experience with this plant and you've used it or you've seen others use it, a lot of that fear goes away. There's nothing beats getting rid of fear except true knowledge and experience and understanding. And with cannabis, that is absolutely the fact.
Yeah, I totally agree. So that's nothing new for me, but I hope a lot of new listeners will feel the same way, or at least feel the urge to experiment with it. Like, don't just think you're going to be able to get into a plane and fly it around. If you don't know how to use the plane as a tool and you haven't learned how to become a pilot, you're making a huge mistake taking it on. So when did you start writing these cool books? I got to say, man, I spend a lot of time looking at this. I'm holding it up to the camera now for the folks who are watching on YouTube. this Cannabis in Canada Illustrated History. It's just amazing. How did you? How long did it take you to write all of that?
That book represents about 20 years of work. It's something I started out. In fact, when I first became an activist, I would write a lot of flyers and pamphlets, and one of the flyers that I would do was the history of cannabis in Canada. That back then it was just a half-page flyer with a few key points on it. Over the years, it evolved into that book. I worked with a very talented artist to have it all illustrated, and some of the art in there was drawn over 20 years ago, and some of it was drawn last year. So it's been a really long-term project, and I guarantee that anyone who reads that book will learn some very interesting things, because I learned a lot while I was writing it. And the history of cannabis in Canada is not very well understood, and the story of this plant and how integral it has been to Canadian culture, to our economy, to our history in every way, right back to the 1600s, before Canada was even a country. And so, I hope people enjoy that book and learn from it. There's a lot of great stuff in there.
There sure is. Now, tell me a little bit about, you've got the, in Pothead Books here at Cannabis. You can find out about this book, folks, at cannabishistory.ca. That'll redirect you to Pothead Books. So that's a great book in there. That's only $10. God, all those hours and so much time going into it. It's $10. You really want to do yourself a favor with this. Tell us about Green Buds and Hash. I'm kind of curious how you've been able to emulate some of the famous styles, such as, Dr. Seuss, Theodore Geisel there, and you've also got a Harry Potter riff called Harry Pothead and the Marijuana Stone. I'm fine with it. It's great. I really like it. I've got a copy of the Green Buds and Hash at home. I didn't bring it with me, but was there any kind of legal constraints about, the pictures that your illustrators put together, are you kidding me? Can you hear him? Is he gone? Oh, God. Folks, I don't know how much, this is so frustrating for me. I hope I'm more frustrated than you are, because I've still got Dana on my screen. I should show everybody. Take a look at this. There's Dana up there. He's still there talking, right? And, of course, he's not really there. He's hung up. He didn't hang up. Somehow got hung up on. And really not getting a break tech-wise at all today. Not at all. Not at all. So maybe he'll call back. I really apologize. I want to say I'm so sorry. I've never had such a problem. We've been speaking to Australia. We've been speaking to Ireland. And now I'm being rude to my guest. It's basically like putting my hand up in his face every time. He might get frustrated with this. I know I am. How many more times are you going to call this guy in Toronto with a lame Skype connection? Anyway, you're listening to Green Crush Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park, and no, I'm not going to go right to the conspiracy well just to tell you this is why that Skype's not working, but you can hear that kind of comment on a lot of conspiracy theme shows. I have no idea why this is not playing the game with us here. I'm talking to the guy, and he hangs up, or he gets hung up on, and meanwhile, he still looks like he's on my screen. So who knows? I'm going to just tell him something. If you don't want to try again, I get it. I've got a producer telling me we can't keep doing this, but here we go back to Dana. Are you there, sir? I don't know what is going on. I was just explaining. Oh, good God. Good God. Reconnecting. He's calling me. He's doing everything he can. This is just amazing. We'd like to thank our new sponsors of the show who are not interested in putting money into this kind of shit. Anyway, I don't know what is going on. This is one of the most fascinating guests we've ever had. All of our guests are fascinating, but he's the fascinating guest of the day right now, and we can't maintain a connection with him? Let me ask Russell. Russell, have you guys had problem on the Mike Richards Raw show with Skype? Not really. No, not really. Well, maybe we should talk about hockey or something. Maybe maybe we'll have a clearer line. I'm going to call him back. Let's have me call him now. Dana Larsen. He can't be reached on Skype at the moment. Good Lord. All right, folks. I apologize for this. I would like to say that I really have no idea why this is going on. I will... Maybe we should use Mike's computer the next time, huh? Maybe we should get a different line or something. I don't know. I don't understand it. It's really terrible. We're getting some news from British Columbia that it's very stormy out there. And that's just my fury, Kim, coming across the crackling lines. That's all that is. This is such a ripoff. You know, this is the thing about doing a pre-recorded show. If I was having this much trouble, I would, work it out, spend 4 hours talking to him and cut it together into a nice little 40-minute interview or something. But we don't have that option right now. So the show must go on. And unfortunately, when I called Dana, if he's even able to listen on YouTube or wherever he might be listening to us now live, YouTube, as we broadcast the show from 234 King Street East in Toronto's East Downtown section. The Pacific Junction Hotel, fantastic food, great company. Come on by sometime. And if you do, bring a Wi-Fi booster. This is not looking like we're going to be able to hook up at all. This is super disappointing. I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to do an interview with Dana at another time. I am going to do an interview at another time, and even if I have to call him on the telephone, and I guess we won't be able to trust that we can use Skype, and I'm going to have to. This guy has too much to say. He's too valuable a person. I mean, folks in Canada sitting there listening to friggin' Justin Trudeau blather on about a bunch of nonsense constantly. We get all kinds of that. That's what this show is about. I'm trying to provide a counterbalance to the bullshit waves. You know what I mean? And so here we are with our little 10-watt operation or whatever it is, and can't even maintain a call that just about everybody around the world has no trouble doing. We have called him several times. I have to count this later. I'm going to give him a ding back right now. Super disappointing. I don't even know how to advertise this show later on. Anyway, all right. Let's Kim can maybe connect with him, and Kim Sakamoto, our producer, maybe she'll be able to get a hold of Dana and tell him that he and I will have to do at a different time of day, record an interview and play it while I'm sitting here looking at my computer saying nothing, because we do need to hear what this gentleman has to say. We've got such a great interview lined up. We were just cracking it open here. Come on, folks. Give me a chance. Give me a chance, old world, old tech world. All right, so I'll go back to the blacklisted news story about how cannabis oil is gathering. Now Dana's telling me he's here. And it's telling me on Skype but can't be reached, but I'm also getting messages. Oh, gosh, here we go. Let's hope. Cross your fingers. Everybody cross your fingers for this, okay? Here we go. Dana, are you there?
I'm here.
How's your weather?
You can hear me or not?
How's your weather out there?
Well, it's kind of stormy or rainy, but I mean, that shouldn't affect my internet. Everything else seems to be working smoothly here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, there's me saying everything twice, and that's never happened before either. To be honest with you, it's been quite frustrating. I don't know exactly where we left off, but oh yeah, we were talking about you. I was trying to. Oh, good God, this feels like Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football right about now. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? This is kind of super crazy and irritating. And so this is live in the moment. So Kim, our producer, is going to contact Dana herself, and because she's out in BC as well. And she's going to tell Dana that I would like to speak with him, and we will reschedule him, not for live broadcast, because to hell with this, but some other time when I can just sit down at home with him. Here's another 1-star rating, Skype. Do something with it. I can't hear any sound. The volume was low. I'm going to check everything. The other side could not hear sound. We kept interrupting each other. I heard noise on the call. I heard echo on the call. The call ended unexpectedly. I like to click that box about 15 times. And the speech was not every single thing that can go wrong with Skype. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 things. Send. It probably won't get the stupid message. Yes. Kim, Dana's now asking me if we should try another time. I am going to make that call and say, yes, we should, but it's going to have to be pre-recorded because I will not tolerate this kind of thing again. We've spoken with several countries around the world, and this is just not working out. Tell you what I'll do. I'll leave it hot. Says it's active now. Says Dana Larsen, active now. Dana's not available to come to Skype at the moment. At the same time, while I see his picture, while the voice isn't going through. So you can't really be, that's not fair. That's not reasonable as a technical problem. That's just too much crap. So I'm going to leave my Skype up. But if we find out that Dana can call me, I will try to answer that. But in the meantime, I'm going to have to move on with the show. Come on. Is that the final thing? Yeah. Okay, so we'll talk about that later. He either calls me or he doesn't, and he can or he can't, and that's okay. I'm not going to call him. I can't keep doing this. This is not cool. And we need to move on with some information for the folks that are still listening. After I don't know how many of them hung up. All right, maybe we can snip some. No, we can't snip any of this out of the feed. You guys are going to hear this every single time. So, okay, cannabis oil is gathering momentum as a world-class healer from a world-class broadcast. All right, here we go. It's gathering unstoppable momentum as a world-class healer, and there's little or nothing Western governments are going to be able to do to stop it, Jeff Sessions. You friggin' backwards-thinking Keebler Elf Attorney General in the United States. Once again, running on beliefs and fictions. Cases are popping up all over the world showing that cannabis oil has healed some very serious diseases, including anxiety disorders, which I might be suffering from right now considering the way this call's been going, epilepsy, MS, multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy, and cancer. Hello, hello. This young man healed his stage 4 throat, stomach, and pancreatic cancer with cannabis oil. Wow, that guy's got tons of stuff on me. This Australian woman healed her terminal stage 4 cancer with it, and then you can click a link and go to it. Obviously, we're not going to do that. It's a fundamental human right, no matter where you live on this planet, to be able to access and use whatever medicine you want to heal yourself. And thankfully, we are beginning to see that governments worldwide will not have the power to stand in the way of this natural right any longer. So that is a fact. It's not a belief by some old cop who's now sucking on the government teat of a permanent pension down the line to take a bunch of laws and change them into a bunch of worse laws. That's one thing I was going to be discussing with Dana Larsen. We differ somewhat on that. He says, our guest who can't be with us, while I look at his picture, and he is with us, he says that as the legislation of Canada is written in this very moment, it would be better off that we pass that through than if we don't. Whereas I find it to be so problematic, it doesn't make sense to pass it through, and I really wanted to get to that part of the conversation with him, but look what's happening here. Problems. Okay, so we're going to move on to another cannabis health story. Here's a cannabis story that's more news, and you've got some photographs here of a very sick-looking, bald little boy who's not quite at all the right color, and then just beside that, of course, all his hair is back, and he's good. It's cannabis oil cures 3-year-old boy of cancer after doctors gave him 48 hours to live. This is really strange because I was given 10 to 12 months, and I only had one kind of cancer, and but hey, this fella, June 23rd from 2017, a young boy by the name of Landon Riddle was diagnosed with leukemia back in 2012 at just 2 years old. He was given a 10% chance of even making it through the night, but he did. Landon underwent chemotherapy, as most people do, and while he lived, he suffered. He was not able to eat for weeks at a time and lost 50% of his weight. He was always in pain. His family knew something needed to be done. They were not just quite sure what that was. After looking into many things his grandmother suggested they look into, cannabis oil treatment, they relocated to Colorado so that they were where the treatment was legal, and within days, Landon was improving. He was vomiting less and eating finally. Landon's mother faced a lot of trouble over this regarding child protective services and virtually being forced into a wall on either following through with 3 years of chemotherapy or losing custody of her son. See, this place is ruled by vampires and monsters. And when I say this place, I'm not talking about the Pacific Junction Hotel or Eggplant Digital Sound Media Creation. Eggplant Digital, some of Canada's most innovative online programming when the Skype is working. After looking into many things, they try this, it starts to work. They bail out on the chemo that was making him sick, and Child Protective Services is going to take the kid away? Who are these people? As Jerry Seinfeld would say, Landon and his mother had to go through a lot to get his treatments exactly how they needed to be, and even now face issues regarding the decision to remove or lower chemotherapy while he's in remission. Oh, what a cute little kid there. Look at him, and he's all alive and everything. Lucky you got a kid to take away, Child Protective Services. You could have just left him alone. He could have gone, way sick from the chemo, but instead he's got this cannabis oil on board, and we're supposed to believe this doesn't work? Now he's 7 years old, and he's been using cannabis oil since he was 2. He was cured, as they say with quotes, at age 3, and has never looked back since. He and his mother are very strong, and I believe they will get through anything thrown their way. This is like our guest Vera Toomey, who had to take her child to Europe because Ireland said it was illegal. This is the article we're telling you about, this Western government stuff. You can't keep doing this. We've even got laws in cannabis where if you try to prevent someone from saving their own life, you're going to have a lot of trouble. It's a crime. It's in the Criminal Code of Canada. I think it's Section 236. I'd have to look it up. But now Landon's doing fantastic. So this is amazing. And then the mother talks about it on a video. That's at healthnutnews.com. Take a look at that. It's not mainstream news. You're a lapdog. Okay, just look it up. It doesn't matter that you don't like the website or you think the website is BS. I guess there's a lot of things on here that might be BS. But this kid's sick. Then he's not. He's been taking the oil. The mother's online. Don't be such a closed-minded idiot because you could be backing yourself into a corner on a cure that might help you or your loved ones. I'm kind of sick of all this. At the same time as I get excited about people becoming victorious over this stupid disease and other diseases. It's just such a fight all the time. Cannabis and coconut oil make a powerful mixture to kill cancer cells. Hey, don't I know it? I used to tell the government before when I was doing this in stand-up comedy, I'd say, you know what? I've been using cannabis oil. I cooked it in my kitchen. And I took coconut oil with that, and I made my own suppositories. And if the government doesn't like that, they can shove it up their ass, because that's what I do. Humans have cultivated and used the flowering tops of the female cannabis plant since history was recorded. Archaeologists in Central Asia even found over 2 pounds of cannabis in a 2,700-year-old grave of a shaman. Written and pictorial evidence of cannabis is scattered throughout numerous cultures, indicating a wide acceptance and use of the plant for thousands of years. But then the government comes along and classifies it, and then all of a sudden it's illegal. Federal prohibitions outlawing this therapeutic and recreational use of cannabis were first imposed by Congress in 1937. 80 years of backwardness. Later, the plant's organic compounds, which are called cannabinoids, which is pretty cool considering you have an internal cannabinoid receptor system, and you've been trying to live your life, your whole life, without this essential nutrient. This prohibition was put down by Congress with the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. Later, the plant's organic compounds classified as Schedule I substance, which means it has no medical value, it's extremely dangerous, and none of that's true. The classification puts it in there with heroin and says it has a high potential for abuse. Unlike sugar, right? We heard Terrence talk about that at the beginning. Unlike television, 6, 8, 10 hours a day. In contrast, cocaine and methamphetamine, illegal for recreational use, may be consumed under a doctor's supervision and are classed as Schedule II drugs. Examples of Schedule III and IV drugs include anabolic steroids and Valium. So what you're telling me is cannabis is far more damaging and dangerous than anabolic steroids or Valium. All right. Bunch of nonsense. Let's move on to, oh, good, Rick Simpson himself. The Phoenix Tears movie. Now, folks, I want to see this movie. I want to check it out. I want to see this guy. I want to meet him. I'd like to get him on the show somehow. And there's a movie called The Phoenix Tears Movie. Now, this is going to tell you exactly what's going on with this man who is primarily responsible for bringing this particular formation of cannabis oil to the fore. I thank him for it. He's the guy that I found on Google, followed his methods to pull myself out of a box that 6 guys might carry down a church aisle and stick in the ground. And here's an Indiegogo campaign going on for the Phoenix Tears movie. Just put up Indiegogo and Rick Simpson. You'll find it. And I'm going to play a little bit of the audio from this trailer that explains why it's a great idea to contribute some funds here. Now, listen, they've got 7% of their $40,000 that they're looking for. That's a flexible goal, but there's only 8 days left, so this could be in vain. I don't know why people don't want to pay money and find out about this medicine from the guy who has put it together. But if not in an effort to help, as a salute, I would like to play a little bit of this trailer from the Rick Simpson Phoenix Tears movie. They're trying to get money for it. And are you going to kid me with this thing's not ready for playback? Are you going to kid me with this? Oh, God. Come on, man. Yeah, it's got 8 days left in the campaign. Maybe that's why they can't raise any money. Now, what's going on here? Let's try it again.
In the beginning, it literally boggled my mind because I couldn't believe that there was any one extract that could do all of this. I mean, we're talking about cancer, multiple sclerosis, arthritis, AIDS. It just goes on and on and on.
In McCann, Nova Scotia, this oil is gaining a reputation as a miracle drug.
That's the cure right there.
Oil extracted from marijuana plants. Rick Simpson has been making it and giving it to friends and neighbors. He calls it hemp oil.
The reason I'm treating it with hemp oil is because I looked at a video just recently called Run from the Cure by
Tommy
Rick
Chong.
Simpson.
Cheech and Chong. Phoenix Tears, the Rick Simpson story. Now, how does that not wind up getting more than just a few $1,000s? They're only looking for $40,000. They've only raised just shy of $3,000. There's only 8 days left. So go to Indiegogo.com, punch in Rick Simpson, and see what you can do. Let's get this information out to everybody. Then we can stop listening to politicians telling us what they believe. Now, here's something I want to talk about that's super important. I have told this story so many times that people came to me and said, hey, why don't you do a show about it? Thanks again, Raw Mike Richards. Last year, I was talking to him in May. We started this show because of that in July. I talk to thousands of people every week. I talk to people live in person. I've talked to media. I've explained a lot of this journey of mine over and over again. I've spoken to millions of people on coast to coast, answered a lot of questions, can back up my data. Used to work at CBC as an entertainer there. They're not interested in a former entertainer who's been there for 12 years on one of the most watched television shows in the history of CBC. Used to pull in 1 million a week when everything else would pull in 200,000 or 300,000 or 400,000 people in Canada. And there were a lot of aspects of that I do miss, and mostly a lot of the people that I worked with there. But what I don't miss is the CBC has had several opportunities, including a willful interview by a reporter of me for 10 minutes to talk about this, and they get back with this. It's anecdotal. It's only anecdotal. We don't really know this. We don't really want to promote this. This isn't. Why don't you just do a story, CBC, on the fact that I claim I was on the CBC for years. I claim I got stage 4 irreversible cancer. I claim I was supposed to be dead a long time ago. I claim I rectified myself with cannabis oil. And then, do some digging and make a liar out of me. Wouldn't that be an interesting story? No, they don't want to go there. They don't want to go there at all. Because it's anecdotal. And it doesn't, it's not really the way. and I'm obviously a liar, and everybody using it that's doing well from it is obviously colluding with demons and and liars. So that's why they don't talk to me about it, which does not explain this story on CBC. This Halifax woman, Halifax, Nova Scotia, on the east side of Canada there, out in the pretty much in the water. She's a woman suing a medical marijuana producer after becoming ill. Oh, I think I got my stories maxed up. We'll get to this other gal later. This is a good one, though. Okay, so hold on to that. This is a different angle. This licensed producer, a licensed producer that the government of Canada says is one of the only legal purveyors, and anybody else is going to be going to jail. They have a lot of these companies, and a lot of these folks are now, the companies have experienced recalls for mold issues and chemical contaminant issues. So here's from a couple of days ago. This Halifax woman, Dawn Ray Downton's inflammatory arthritis kept her up at night. Her pain specialist suggested she try medical marijuana. But the cure wound up being worse than the disease. Though the marijuana did help her sleep, she also developed severe nausea. She lost nearly all of 2016 to constant nausea around the clock. Constant vomiting or retching is probably a better way to put it, since she had nothing in her stomach and by that time lost a lot of weight. She was that sick. She was helpless on the couch. It took her 8 months to figure out the link between the nausea and the marijuana. Cannabis can cause a condition known as cannabinoid hyperemesis. But the specialist treating Downton didn't think this diagnosis fit her profile. So as far as Health Canada is concerned, she says she doesn't think it has a clue about what's going on. This body called Health Canada. In the States, that would be called the FDA. Then it turned out the medical marijuana Downton had been using from a Moncton-based producer called Organigram. Organic grams. Very funny. Put a word together. And that was the subject of a recall because it was found to contain prohibited pesticides. Now these weasels, these punks, these criminals out here at Organigram, how do you even have a company called Organigram? Why are there any pesticides anywhere? Oh, you're lying. Oh, okay. It's not organic at all. The testing cannabis for the licensed weed producers. Now Downton is now part of a class action lawsuit there for the licensed weed producers. This is going to be bad news for them, but she's part of a class action lawsuit against Organigram, which this show has called already weeks and weeks ago for a full-on, across-the-board boycott ban. Because to me, companies that purvey something of quality that you're going to be using specifically for your health, I'd bloody well be better doing a good job of it. And these guys are the worst because they have the name organic. Now, if you're going to buy a leafy, a pot from Julian Fantino, who's a former cop that used to be the chief of police in Toronto, and then later the OPP, and put people in jail for years for using cannabis, and then as soon as you see the dollar signs in your eye, none of that matters anymore because you don't have any morals. You don't want to buy your pot from Aleafia either. So there, just about every single purveyor in Canada of licensed cannabis has got some shit story behind them. But come on, man, if you're called Organigram, why do you even have pesticides in the building? Don't tell me you don't know how it got in there. Your company, your building, is called Organigram. You don't get to bring any pesticides into it. And they were doing it over and over again, obviously, because this woman has been suffering from this months and months before she could put it together. So this company needs to go out of business. Everyone there needs to lose their job and work somewhere else. And let's punish the owners of this place. And definitely don't buy your stuff from Organigram, New Brunswick. And I hope that class action lawsuit rips them apart. And any other medical marijuana purveyor that the government has said is okay. We don't hear these troubles from the dispensaries that they keep arresting people and keep taking the stash from... That's what they do. They go into these dispensaries, they take the weed, and then they put a big photograph in the media, in the newspapers, the TV shows, the news. Where does that stuff go? Whatever happens to that stuff? No one ever asked that question at the CBC or anywhere else. So far as Health Canada is concerned, I don't think it has a clue about what's going on, so she says. As far as product goes, you can buy on the streets, probably at least as safe as a licensed producer now, and that seems to be the case. We're not wading through a lot of claims from people going, hey, I went to a dispensary and they sold me such bad stuff I was sick for months. And this is the bad stuff that the government wants to take away, the dispensary version. This is why everything is upside down, backwards. You're believing a paradigm of liars.
Oh, the government wouldn't do anything to hurt its own people.
One of the most naive things that's ever come out of any goober's mouth in the last 1,000 years. Health Canada released a new proposed regulations that are designed to keep cannabis consumers safe, but there have been multiple recalls from licensed producers over the last few years for pesticides and molds. We're talking about medical cannabis here, and so these are essentially pharmaceutical products, and they are being provided to patients who are, for one reason or another, ill and would be immunocompromised, says Maddie Carter, a lawyer with the Halifax law firm Wagner's, which is working on the Organigram class action lawsuit that hopefully will put them out of business. So it is of great concern when clients of licensed producers find out there are these unauthorized pesticides in the products they're consuming. Thanks for nothing, Health Canada. Liars, punks, cheats. And speaking of liars, I need to shut up for a second. I thought I was going to be having a conversation with an intelligent man. Instead, I'm rambling on my own self about all kinds of other valid things. But hey, Daddy needs a drink. So I'd like to say from Freedom for All, and that's a channel on YouTube, Freedom for All, which I did an interview with them, and so did many other people, and they've put together a fascinating 3 minutes of video regarding the supposed leader of our country, Justin Trudeau, who is now taking orders from his party about what they need to do in order to not piss off their voters anymore. This guy's popularity is plummeting pretty fast. Faster than the jokes were coming about his predecessor's haircut. And so they put a video together, and I'm going to play that now for you. This is Trudeau Lied About Legalization, and a little chunk of yours truly in there. And we'll be right back after this. Don't go away. I'm just going away. You take a listen to this. Take me down for a second, Russell. We're going to play this thing 3 minutes, and we'll be right back. Will we? Will we be right back? Here we go. All right. Heavy duty music.
I have said many, many times it is our intention to stop Mr. Harper's failed approach on marijuana.
You're doing the same thing, Sonny.
We saw a string of police raids and arrests across Toronto through the pot dispensaries. This was a mess. Now, if your government concedes that this shouldn't be a crime, why is the current law still being enforced?
Well, a candid interview with the leader of the Liberal Party sparked a lot of debate today. Not just because Justin Trudeau said he'd smoked marijuana since becoming an MP.
I have been, in my past, a very rare user of marijuana. I think 5 or 6 times in my life that I've taken a puff.
Trudeau says one of those puffs was about 3 years ago when he was an MP. But few found that shocking.
If we're going to be legalizing it, which we are, we haven't done it yet. And until we change the laws currently exist.
The Minister of Justice, appearing at committee today, said that the Liberals' approach to legalization would, quote, ensure that we decriminalize the use of marijuana. Once again, mixed signals from this government, while thousands of mostly young Canadians are still getting criminal records for personal use of marijuana. If the government is indeed willing to decriminalize, our question is simple. What the hell are they waiting for?
This series of laws that we're coming out of, because what I call the legalization is like, this is how we arrest you for cannabis. Now, And this is how we're going to arrest you for it later.
Yeah.
These crazy paradigms that they establish, the entire infrastructure itself on how to access a flower that grows in the ground. And what all of these crazy mistakes are, these miscalculations, these overridings of what we would like to call democracy, but it clearly isn't.
But Justin Trudeau wasn't always so transparent. In 2009, he voted in favor of harsher penalties for pot, and only last year was against legalization.
One of the things that pot does is disconnects you a little bit from the world. As anyone has, I was having an evening where there was a joint passed around, and I took a puff.
Why keep spending money going after dispensaries when selling marijuana will be legal in some way in the future?
That we're
That's Justin for you. That's a good representation. Well, it disconnects you from society, and if we are going to legalize it, and we are, we haven't done it yet. And I'm in Davos, Switzerland right now, being told what to do. What do you mean it disconnects you from society? No, Justin, it disconnects you from your spew of constant fiction about this substance. All right? That's what it does. We did get enough time out of Dana Larsen earlier, and he's not the only one, but he's one of the only ones who's experimented with it to the level where he realizes not what you believe, Justin, not what you believe, but what the facts are. All right? And the facts are that it's disconnecting us from being sucked into your line of fiction. There's too much science now. Sonny boy. I like that one question interviewer that was taking him to task was actually Ben Mulroney. He's the son of a former prime minister on the other side of the aisle, one of the conservative ministers. So they're really different, right? Except they both swear allegiance to the Queen. And back in 2013, 12, 14, this is Justin Trudeau telling everybody that Stephen Harper's repressive marijuana laws have got to go, and this is terrible. And then he wins the election and doesn't do anything about it except get his friend Chuck Rafisi to invest a lot of money into this new paradigm. And his pal Stephen Bronfman of the Bronfman rum-running gang from days of yore, who were also balls deep into prohibition / we're going to make a lot of money from this when it goes legal. It's the same template. We've talked about that a bunch on previous shows, so I'm not going to go too deep on it now. But now we have Justin Trudeau being urged by his MPs to drop criminal penalties for all illicit drug use. Not just cannabis, all illicit drug use. You know the way sometimes you see, maybe I get in trouble for saying this, but you'll see some fella coming out of an ice cream parlor and he's got like a 3.5-year-old son and the kid's gigantic. He's eating like a giant triple cone. That's his business. He's the father or the mother. And it's very damaging to take in that much sugar and dairy and fat and all of that at the same time, and it's one of our favorite things that we like to do. There's no law against that. So even as Justin Trudeau prepares to deliver on his promise to legalize, recriminalize recreational marijuana, Liberal MPs are pushing the government to eliminate criminal penalties for simple possession and consumption of all illicit drugs. And I hope if you're a cop listening to this show, your butthole just clenched. These guys cannot get over it. It just can't. Oh, it's against the law. We're going to keep doing it. What about when it's not against the law? Why are we spending all this money recriminalizing, fattening the prison industry? Why are we doing that? To cater to the mindset of a repressive, police-based, illegal state. You know why? Because these guys are, it's really ugly, but it's simple. They'll just have less to do. They won't need as many. The budgets will be able to shrink, not increase every time. So while a lot of people in the United States are calling for legal weed being, decriminalized to provide reparations. That's what you have to do. You have to provide reparations. If you're not sure what that means, basically, in this case, it means, well, a lot of folks are going to all of a sudden make a lot of money from cannabis. It's not really any kind of fairness. Loads of people have had their lives ruined, gone to jail, been separated from their families, just because a person like Julian Fantino, who used to be a cop putting people there, now he gets to roll around like a sow in a trough with these new hard-earned monies. Once again, it's a ban on Aleafia, 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 a cannabis purveyor ruled over by a police officer. Don't buy your cannabis from him. He'll be fine, believe me. He's got a government pension after buggering things up under Stephen Harper. So is this nuts to think that in California, which just went on January 1st to move it into a legal thing, legal access, that reparations are at hand? Is that a nutty thing? Do we have that now in Canada? Do we have that here? I guess a lot of the politicians believe that would be a bad idea. For marijuana politics in the business section, this is an article from March 18, 2016. There's an informative piece called How Black People Are Being Shut Out of America's Weed Boom. That's on BuzzFeed originally, and that's a must-read for the marijuana movement. A subject, if it interests you, and it should, you should also check out minoritycannabis.org to learn more. The gist being that legal marijuana world is a rich white man's playground after decades of the illegal substance being the domain of black and brown people who bore the brunt of racist prohibition enforcement. One major hurdle for minority involvement in the new legal cannabis industry is the high cost of getting licensed for cultivation operations in dispensaries. States may require outrageously high demonstrations of secured capital, like being able to show one has a $2 million letter of credit before even applying for a license. These kinds of requirements obviously favor white capitalists able to amass such fortunes in an economy that disfavors building minority wealth through historic practices such as real estate redlining and the legacy of slavery through the Jim Crow era that's left black families with virtually no wealth. But monetary hurdles are secondary barriers more indicative of systemic racism in general than anything particular to the marijuana movement. You keep reading this article. It says that lawmakers like these no drug felons restrictions because of a mistaken understanding of what drug dealers are. They're not evil criminal masterminds looking to harm the public for their personal gain. They're entrepreneurs no different from any other, aside from the product being illegal. So there's already a reparation movement going on, and you don't hear that in Canada. That's chatted about over a drink or a toke somewhere, but there's nothing like that in our legislation right now because these idiots believe that's not a good idea, I guess. Who knows? Probably never catch on anyway, right? Oh, California is allowing 1 million residents convicted of weed charges to wipe the slate clean. Thanks to the groundbreaking legislation that went into full effect in January 1st, over 1 million residents there in California can have their past marijuana-related felonies reduced or expunged completely. Now, that doesn't put your life back together so much so as, you don't get those years back that these evil bastards have vacuumed away from so many people. But Proposition 64, passed in November 2016, legalized the recreational use of California for California residents 21 or older. And since the legislation was approved, thousands of state residents already have had their marijuana felonies reduced to misdemeanors. Really shouldn't be anything at all, but it's at least a good way to go. Drug Policy Alliance estimates there have been at least 500,000 arrests for marijuana-related incidents over the course of the last 10 years alone. I'm laughing, but it's kind of freaky. It's scary that that's what some people who claim to have authority were able to do to us. Moreover, the organization says that at least 1 million residents are living under the shadow of such charges altogether, and so these folks are getting their Their records wiped clean. So now let's take a quick shot here at this little thought. This is kind of an interesting one. I picked it up a little bit earlier.
People jumping off buildings, car crashes. It was mayhem. But not once was there a mention of the possibility that cannabis was useful as medicine.
No, they don't tend to get to that too much. They just believe that it's bad. But there are a lot of people that understand it is good. And while Attorney General Jeff Sessions has unwittingly become a key supporter of Israel's thriving medical marijuana industry, and if you don't believe that, just ask cannabis researcher Yossi Tam. Speaking in Palo Alto this week, the Israeli expert on cannabinoids, which are the chemicals that give the plant its medical and recreational properties, said anti-pot politics in the United States have allowed Israel's medical marijuana industry to thrive. Israel has attracted some of the top American researchers, and while it still remains a Schedule I drug at the federal level alongside heroin and ecstasy, meaning that research is stunted, that's what they like to do, too. They say, well, there's not enough evidence of this. And then they prevent that research from taking place. This is the act of a monster. Take a minute and look that word up in the dictionary. I think you'll find it's a different definition than what you normally think of. However, in Israel, which is preparing to start issuing export licenses for cannabinoid-based products, cannabis research is flourishing. Why? Because they got out of the way over there. This fellow's also part of a team seeking medicinal uses of cannabis and fighting everything from epilepsy to traumatic brain injury to cancer. So it's time for Justin Trudeau. Hey, Justin, Davos is fun, right? Always wanted to go myself. Switzerland, beautiful. Don't come back. Don't come back. Here's a mom. She's facing prison for providing free cannabis medicine. And we've got an interview with her coming up shortly. We're going to iron out some tech kinks. We will be speaking with Jenny Hallam. She's a mother in Australia. This is on Sydney Criminal Lawyers website. sydneycriminallawyers.com.au, Australia. The benefits of medical cannabis have been rediscovered. The clinical trials and the research papers have documented evidence showing it's treating conditions such as chronic pain, seizures in children with Dravet syndrome, hello Vera Toomey, and multiple sclerosis. However, close to 2 years later, from February 2016 in the United States, it's too bad that this South Australian woman who was supplying patients with medical cannabis oil for free, it's not even a profit motive, she could be facing up to 9 years behind bars. Still, today, yeah, go check your calendar, look at your Apple Watch. It's 2018. Going to put her in jail for helping people for free. This is why I say we're living in a world of monsters. She was giving them the need, people in need, the same sort of medicine the government is supposedly trying to make available, with opioids and stuff that are killing people. So Jenny's looking like she's in a lot of trouble, and we hope to talk to her before she's sentenced. Okay, so back to the States there with Jeff Sessions' war on pot. This guy is now going to be dealing with a 12-year-old girl who has epilepsy. She's suing the federal government. Alexis Bortel filed a lawsuit against Sessions last fall, and she had to do that to save her life. Bortel has epilepsy, and Sessions has made it his mission to make it impossible for her to access the only drug that's kept her seizure at bay. Cannabis. The end. Shut up. Jeff Sessions, you're going to be sued by a 12-year-old girl. One good thing there, I guess, is once you're in the courtroom, you'll be able to stand there and look at her eye to eye. Now, what's worse than hassling a 12-year-old girl who's turning her health around with this oil? Well, it's doing the same thing to an 11-year-old girl. Different kid. This girl's parents, Jim and Maureen Surin, sued the Schaumburg Township Elementary District 54 in the state of Illinois for not allowing their daughter to take cannabis at school. Oh, cannabis at school! Oh, no! What do we do? According to the lawsuit, the girl wears a medical patch containing small amounts of THC on her foot, and from time to time, she uses oil drops on her wrists or on her tongue. The wrist is a good absorbent. when the patch is not enough to prevent her seizures. So there's another lawsuit. This kid has leukemia. She's getting fantastic results from cannabis, but it's illegal. Like, when is this going to stop? Is anybody going to pick up the phone while I'm talking right now and call your local representatives? These alcohol-swilling, normal people who lay down these restrictive laws. Oh, here's a new study saying eating raw weed protects against brain diseases. So I totally believe that Jeff Sessions has never partaken of cannabis. Not like Justin Trudeau. This guy's never had one piece of pot in his head. That would explain his mental regression. We talked about this before. It's a food. It's one of the food groups. You're missing it if you don't take it. Most people who are ill have a specific disease, but overall they're suffering from a cannabis deficiency. Go ahead and laugh and then do the research and get back to me. Truth Seeker. Hey, time for a little Truth Seeker commercial. The Truth Seeker app. Go to Truth Seeker app. You can load this thing in. It's for discerning news junkies that don't buy the line of the mainstream media. It's an app you can use that corrals a lot of programs. Both versions of my show are on there, so sure, it's self-serving, but it's a good place to go. Podcasts, video, radio, and web links. All kinds of people. None of the mainstream, of course. And some of them have been on there for years. So I'd like to say thanks again to the Truth Seeker app people for including me in the happy family of truth tellers. And we're coming into the home stretch now. I know I'm kind of happy about that because I'll be able to immediately start investigating this entire ridiculous Skype situation that we've been so encumbered with today. But let's see what we can do here as we wrap things to a close on the show today. We're going to move now from the Green Crush side of things more onto the conspiracy side of things. And I have to say, it's unfortunate that we have lost a fantastic truth teller in the way of Shiv Chopra. Shiv Chopra was the author of the book Corrupt to the Core. Shiv Chopra was an expositor, a whistleblower of the shenanigans. And we're talking vaccines, we're talking all kinds of problematic practices at what we've already talked about here earlier on the show, Health Canada. And Shiv, unfortunately, has passed away, so my condolences go out to his family and friends, but also to everyone in Canada. This guy was a major pain in the ass to the non-truth tellers. And unfortunately, Shiv Chopra, I'm not going to get too specific. I don't really know why he's gone, but I'm getting kind of tired of a lot of these cool people who work hard to tell the truth and get on top of the governmental fictions not being with us anymore. We got to lose Prince. We got to lose David Bowie. We got to lose Farrah Fawcett and Michael Jackson on the same day. When are we going to hear like something like, this morning, Donald Rumsfeld was hit by a train, and later on this afternoon, Dick Cheney got a heart attack and didn't make it? We need some of that kind of swing back on the pendulum. Now, I'm not openly calling for their death. I'm just saying, why is it all the cool people? Why is it all the helpful researchers and those that bring great interest? Why is Terrence McKenna no longer here? I don't know. Go to shivchopra.com and take a look at that man in a post-mortem kind of way. Still going to leave that video, that website up there. He's got a book called Corrupt to the Core, Memoirs of a Health Canada Whistleblower. Take a read of that. He's got the 5 pillars of food safety, which include slaughterhouse waste, pesticides, antibiotics, hormones, and genetically modified organisms. It is your sovereign right to eat locally produced safe food without external inputs of hormones, antibiotics, slaughterhouse waste, GMOs, and pesticides. This guy was a great guy. So I'm very sorry he's no longer with us. But that brings us to a fascinating article on the Cannabis Life Network. 5 reasons Health Canada doesn't deserve to exist. We've talked about a lot of them already in the past hour or so. But that's a great article on Cannabis Life Network. Health bureaucracies are strange and dangerous. They appropriate unto themselves the sole deciding power over what adults can and cannot put into their bodies. This is why some of the liberal folks are telling Justin to get off of that horse. It's a clear violation of our basic human rights. I was on Facebook yesterday talking to some person who's pretty much advocating mandatory flu shots. Called her a bit of a fascist, and she went nuts, although was unable to provide any backing facts. The bureaucrats at Health Canada have an impressive track record at botching things. Wherever they can, it seems as though they try their hardest to ensure that Canadians are not only denied access to safe and effective treatments, but they encourage destructive behaviors, deliberately mislead the public, ignore science, hear, and push dangerous drugs that are in many cases banned in the rest of the world. So on the way to close, let's get to the closing music, and we'll see if I can time this thing out. Let's see. Right. Yeah, this is an article in Health Nut News again. Censorship, the 1947 medical cannabis study cover-up. All right. That's pretty cool. Written in 2016. The Antique Cannabis book is a free resource on the internet and houses over 2,000 pre-1937 medical cannabis products documented. It's a great resource book for the antique cannabis collector, but don't think of it as a picture book. It's also an amazing resource. It would take too long to paraphrase all the info on the topic. So just understand that the Antique Cannabis book was meant primarily as a tool for active news media reporters. Is there such a thing as that anymore? Who needed a quick yet well-documented source of information on the subject of governmental censorship as it relates to medical cannabis. There's a 1947 study, that's about 10 years after it was made illegal, which was openly published and never actually under the threat of censorship, and would not normally qualify for inclusion. However, look beneath the surface and you'll see a different story that reveals wheels within wheels, circles within circles. And let's say that the study came very close to going the way of so many other medical cannabis studies. So take a look at that on Health Nut News. Censorship, the 1947 medical cannabis study cover-up. And the reason they're going to cover it up is because they're finding out it's really good for you. Gee whiz, you can't have that, huh? These folks are so wrong across the friggin' board, from what we can or can't put into our bodies, what those substances do or do not do, why they think they can control it, why they think they can tether another dollar, take another flesh, a piece of flesh, a pound of flesh, just because I want to use something that's available. So that stuff gets a bit nuts, right? That gets a bit crazy. So, I have to say, this thing seems to be swirling to a head as Canada drags itself towards an alleged recriminalization, re-legalization, non-decriminalization availability of this cannabis substance. And Justin says he doesn't know where the July 1st date came from. It came from the way you campaigned. It came from you misrepresenting yourself. It came from your own mouth and your own party. You fool. So, here we go. Marijuana, the Assassin of Youth, by H.J. Anslinger, the U.S. Commissioner of Narcotics. This is from the American Magazine, July 1937. Not long ago, the body of a young girl lay crushed on the sidewalk after a plunge from a Chicago apartment window. Everybody called it suicide, but actually it was a murder. The killer was a narcotic known to America as marijuana and to history as hashish. Used in the form of cigarettes, it is comparatively new to the United States and as dangerous as a coiled rattlesnake. How many murders, suicides, and maniacal deeds it causes each year, especially among the young, can only be conjectured. You're not kidding. In numerous communities, it thrives almost unmolested, largely because of official ignorance of its effects. Marijuana is the unknown quantity among narcotics. No one knows when he smokes it whether he will become a philosopher, a joyous reveler, a mad insensate, or a murderer. They wrote this shit. Harry Anslinger. This young girl's story is typical. She heard the whisper, which has gone the rounds of American youth, about a new thrill cigarette with a real kick, which gave wonderful reactions and no harmful after effects, so it started out okay. With some friends, she experimented at an evening smoking party. The results were weird. Some of the partiers went into paroxysms of laughter. Oh, how terrible. You're manufacturing positive endorphins? Oh, my God. Others of mediocre musical ability became almost expert. Well, that sounds like a drag. The piano dinned constantly. Still others found themselves discussing weighty problems with remarkable clarity. The girl danced without fatigue throughout the night of inexplicable exhilaration. Other parties followed. Finally, there came a gathering at a time when the girl was behind in her studies and greatly worried. Suddenly, as she was smoking, the thought of a solution to her school problems came. Without hesitancy, she walked to a window and leaped to her death. Thus, marijuana can solve one's difficulties. Thank you, Mr. Anslinger. You are so very, very full of this. So, and by this, I mean, bullshit, right? So that's the show, folks. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you found a lot of information in there. I hope you found a lot of things that maybe changed your mind. And if you already understand a lot of these informational raising your fist blasts, that if you're ill or you know someone who is, maybe you're at the early stage of a disease, don't wait. Catch it early. Don't spend a lot of time waiting for your doctor to decide when the chemo is going to begin. Get on the cannabis oil as quickly as possible. Look at history. Look at case history. And stop believing these people who claim to represent you. They do not represent you. They represent you to their leader, the Crown. Thanks for listening to Conspiracy Queries and Green Crush. This is Alan Park. We'll be back.